South Africa, a land rich in potential, yet weighed down by broken systems and unfulfilled promises. Everywhere you look, there's frustration. Roads falling apart, schools failing our children, hospitals unable to care for the sick. The people are crying out, not just for change, but for survival. How did we get here? Why does it feel like the voices of the masses are being drowned out by empty speeches and endless excuses? In this three-part deep dive, we'll pull back the curtain on the heart of South Africa's struggle. First, we'll expose the daily battles and problems of the system. Then, we'll shine a light on the hopes and demands of the people, the real solutions they're begging for. Finally, we'll hold the government accountable, mapping out clear, actionable steps to rebuild a nation teetering on the edge. This isn't just a story. Stay with us and share this video with everyone, because it's the time to act. It's a call to action. In South Africa, finding a job can feel like chasing the wind for so many young people. Imagine waking up every day, full of dreams, but having nowhere to go. You send out CVs, stand in long lines, and knock on doors, but the answer is always the same. No work. It's not just about money, it's about feeling like you matter. Without a job, even putting food on the table feels like climbing a mountain. You see your parents worried, trying to stretch every rand. Maybe it's just rice for dinner again, and you tell yourself it's fine. But deep down, you want more. Not just for yourself, but for your family too. In the townships, kids grow up watching their older brothers and sisters sitting at home, waiting for something to change. Some try to start small hustles, selling snacks on the street or fixing phones, but it's not enough to make a real living. Others give up, falling into things they shouldn't because they feel stuck. You see the rich people driving past in fancy cars, living lives you can only dream of, and it makes you wonder if the system is even fair. Sometimes it feels like no matter how hard you try, the opportunities just aren't there. But still, people keep pushing. They go to community workshops, try to learn new skills, and share what little they have with each other. There's always that hope, even if it's small, that tomorrow might be better. Maybe you'll find a job, maybe you'll get a call back, or maybe someone will give you a chance. That's all anyone really wants. A chance to prove themselves, to work hard, and to build something better for their future. In South Africa, the promise of education is like a faint light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. For many young people, it's the only hope they have to escape the hardships they were born into. But the journey to that light is anything but easy. Imagine a child sitting in a classroom with cracked walls and broken desks, trying to concentrate while the roof leaks during the rain. The teacher does their best, but with outdated textbooks shared between too many students, how much can they really do? Education here isn't just about learning, it's about survival, finding a way to rise above the odds when the system itself seems stacked against you. For those who make it through school, the next challenge looms even larger. Skills training and further education are out of reach for many, especially in poorer communities. Fees are high, opportunities are scarce, and often the support needed to succeed simply isn't there. You see young men and women bursting with potential, sitting at home because their families couldn't afford university. Some try to teach themselves with what little they can find online, while others take on any job they can just to keep food on the table. The frustration builds not from laziness or lack of ambition, but from a system that makes the road to self-improvement so steep, many can't climb it. And yet the determination in these communities is unshakable. Parents sacrifice everything to send their kids to better schools, even if it means skipping meals. Young people tutor each other, sharing whatever knowledge they have. There's this incredible hunger to learn and grow, but the question that lingers is this: when the system fails you, how far can determination alone take you? For many, the dream of education and skill development feels like a locked door with no key in sight. The dream of having a safe place to call home feels like chasing shadows for so many. You see families crammed into tiny shacks with walls made of scrap metal and roofs that barely hold off the rain. In the evenings, the streets glow faintly with the flicker of candles because electricity is a luxury they can't afford. Parents lie awake at night, not because they're not tired, but because they're scared. Scared of the crime that seeps through the cracks of their fragile shelters. Scared of what tomorrow might bring for their children. For some, moving to the city feels like the only way out. They leave behind their villages, their friends, everything they know, hoping to find work and a better life. But when they get there, the cost of housing hits like a punch to the gut. Even the smallest apartments are out of reach, so they end up in overcrowded townships, sharing spaces where privacy doesn't exist and dignity feels like a forgotten word. There are days when they wonder if it was worth leaving at all, trading one struggle for another. And yet, hope refuses to die. Mothers save every cent they can, skipping meals to put money aside for rent. Fathers take on back-breaking jobs, walking miles to work just to avoid transport costs. They dream of a day when their children will come home from school to a real house, a place with solid walls, a sturdy roof, and the simple joy of turning on a light switch. It's not about luxury, it's about the basic human need to feel safe and settled. But for now, that dream feels like it's always just a little out of reach. In South Africa, the wait outside a clinic can feel like a lifetime. Mothers clutch their babies, praying the fever will hold off just long enough for them to see a nurse. The line snakes around the block, filled with tired faces, some coughing, some limping, all hoping. But the truth is, hope feels thin when the system is stretched so tight. People sit for hours, only to be told the doctor won't be seeing anyone else today or that the medicine they need isn't available. And so they leave, clutching their pain and uncertainty as tightly as their belongings. In the townships, where poverty weaves through every corner, healthcare is often a distant luxury. Clinics are miles away, and transport isn't always an option. You hear stories of elders who quietly suffer through their ailments because they don't want to burden anyone, and of young people who ignore injuries because they can't afford the time or the cost to get them checked. There's a constant battle between survival and surrender, and too often, people fall through the cracks. But despite the struggles, resilience blooms in the most unexpected ways. A neighbor might lend a hand, sharing an old remedy passed down through generations. Communities pull together, raising funds when someone needs urgent care. And through it all, people keep pushing forward, dreaming of a day when access to healthcare won't feel like a privilege, but a right. When a sick child won't mean choosing between medicine and the next meal, and everyone, no matter where they live, will be treated with dignity. In the quiet hours of the night, when the streets should hum with the peace of rest, fear often takes its place in many neighborhoods of South Africa. For some, the sound of footsteps outside isn't just an echo, it's a warning, a reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows. Families lock their doors and hold their breath at the faintest creak, hoping tonight won't bring another break-in, another theft, another wound that cuts deeper than just material loss. It's not just about losing belongings, it's the weight of feeling unsafe in your own home, the one place that should bring comfort. In the townships and urban areas, the struggle for safety is as constant as the struggle for bread. A mother walks home from her late shift, clutching her bag tightly, whispering prayers under her breath as she passes dark alleys. A father works long hours, only to return to a neighborhood where the job of protecting his family begins the moment he steps through the door. Children grow up learning how to navigate their streets carefully, not for adventure, but for survival. The fear of crime seeps into every decision: when to leave the house, which route to take, whether the kids can play outside. It's not just about the money stolen or the property damaged. It's the quiet theft of peace, the constant hum of worry. People dream of change, of a time when the police are more than sirens in the distance or uniforms passing by. They want to see officers walking their streets, talking to their communities, standing guard not just with weapons but with understanding. They want neighborhoods where they can sit outside without checking over their shoulder, where kids can play without fear, where the biggest worry is what to cook for dinner, not whether they'll make it home safely. It's a simple dream, really, to live without fear, but for many, it feels as far away as the stars. In the dusty streets of South Africa, where the sun rises over tin roofs and uneven roads, hope often feels like a distant promise. For many young people, it's not that they don't dream. They do, fiercely. But those dreams are heavy, weighed down by the reality of inequality that still clings to every corner of their lives. A young man sits outside his mother's small shop, watching expensive cars drive by on the main road, knowing he'll never step inside one unless he's washing it. A young woman with a university degree stands in a long line, hoping for a job that will pay just enough to keep her family fed. They hear the words economic empowerment on the news, but in their world, it's just talk. Nothing changes on their streets. You can feel the frustration in the air. People aren't asking for miracles, they're asking for fairness. They look at the vast lands owned by a few and wonder why their communities are crammed into tiny spaces. A farmer dreams of planting his own crops, but the land remains out of reach. A small business owner struggles to get a loan while watching big corporations thrive. They know the system isn't built for them. It was never built for them. And when they see corruption stealing the little hope they have, it's like watching someone take food off their table while their children cry from hunger. It's not just unfair, it's a betrayal. But still, they fight. They march, they protest, they demand to be seen and heard. They want access to land, to opportunities, to resources that were promised but never delivered. They want those in power to stop lining their pockets and start investing in the people. They don't want charity, they want a chance to grow, to build, to leave something better for their children than what they were given. It's not too much to ask, is it? To live in a country where the wealth of the land doesn't belong to a few, but to all who call it home? To finally feel like the future belongs to them too? In the heart of South Africa, where communities rely on the promises of leaders to survive, trust has been chipped away piece by piece. A mother waits at a clinic with her sick child, only to be told there's no medicine today again. She looks at the peeling walls, the broken chairs, and wonders where the money went. The money they said was meant for places like this. Down the road, a man sits in the dark as the power cuts out once more, his small shop losing another day's earnings. He remembers the speeches about progress, about a better life for all, but all he sees is failure. For him, corruption isn't a word. It's the empty fridge at home, the pothole that wrecked his taxi, the school with no books for his kids. People talk about it everywhere, in the queues, at the bus stops, over dinner if there's dinner to be had. They've seen officials driving luxury cars while water pipes stay broken for months. They've read the headlines about stolen funds, but it's not the headlines that hurt. It's the reality they live in every single day. It's the young woman who can't get a job because the money for skills development disappeared. It's the grandparents who sleep under blankets in winter because the housing project never came. They ask, how much more can they steal from us? And no one has an answer. The anger isn't just about the theft of money, it's about the theft of dignity, of hope, of futures. But even in this frustration, there's a fire that won't go out. People want justice. They want leaders who don't just talk but act, who don't just show up for votes and disappear. They want to see those who've stolen from them held accountable, punished, made to give back what they took. They want the promises to finally mean something. Because for the people, it's not about politics. It's about survival. They don't need big speeches or fancy words. They need working clinics, clean water, good schools, and lights that stay on. They need leaders who remember the faces of the people they're supposed to serve, not just the numbers in their bank accounts. They're tired, but they're not giving up. We, the people of South Africa, are tired. Tired of promises that have echoed for years but have never reached our tables. Tired of watching those in power speak of freedom and progress while turning a blind eye to our pain and needs. What we want is simple: a life worthy of dignity, hope that is real, and a government that acts rather than talks. We are exhausted by corruption, by seeing the money that should build schools, hospitals, and jobs disappear into the pockets of those who build mansions off our suffering. It's no longer enough to see a corrupt official removed or transferred. Justice is what we demand. Those who steal from our pain must be held accountable, prosecuted, and made to return what they have taken. Without justice, we cannot hope for a better future. We need transparency. The budgets allocated to our communities must reach us directly, not through corrupt middlemen. We want to know where every cent is going and why. The government must provide clear public reports and remain constantly accountable to the people. If a government cannot be transparent, it means they have something to hide, and we will no longer tolerate these secrets. We need jobs, but not just any jobs. We need jobs that bring security, that build futures. The government must stop relying on empty slogans and create real employment opportunities. Our country's infrastructure is weak. Why not start there? Broken roads, unfinished buildings, unreliable electricity and water systems, all of these could create jobs. Instead of waiting for foreign investors, the government should trust its own people and begin investing in us, here and now. We need land, but land without resources is just empty soil. The land given to us must come with training, tools, and support. We want to farm, to produce, to build lives, but without government backing, this land will become just another empty promise. If the government wants to empower the people, it must equip us, not leave us to struggle alone. We need education, but education that prepares us for real life. Our schools must become places where our children learn not only to read and write, but to gain the skills they need for work and life. The government must invest in schools, train teachers, and ensure that every child, no matter where they live, has access to quality education. Without this, the cycle of poverty will never be broken. We need basic services that work. We need clinics with medicine, roads without potholes, water that flows, and electricity that doesn't cut out. These are not luxuries. They are basic human rights. The government must deliver on these, not as a favor to the people, but as their responsibility. How can we trust a government that cannot even provide the basics? We need leaders who listen, who see us, who recognize our struggles as their own. We are tired of politicians who show up for votes but vanish when it's time to work. We need leaders who understand that their job is to serve the people, not their own pockets. Leadership is not about power, it's about responsibility, and it's time our leaders understood that. We demand action, real action. Not more speeches, not more slogans, not more campaigns. We need to see change in our lives, in our communities, in our country. We need to walk into clinics and find medicine on the shelves. We need our children to attend schools with books and desks. We need roads that are safe to drive on, lights that stay on, and taps that don't run dry. These are not impossible demands. They are the bare minimum. We need an end to excuses. We are done waiting for things to get better. If the government cannot deliver, they must make way for those who can. Our patience has run out. We have marched, protested, and voted, but it feels like we are still invisible. At the end of the day, what we, the people of South Africa, want is not complicated. We don't ask for luxury or excess. We ask for a decent life, a fair chance, and a future we can believe in. We want what was promised to us: freedom, dignity, and equality. It is time for the government to act because we are tired of waiting. The people of South Africa are speaking out, and it's time for the government to listen and act decisively. Our nation's infrastructure is crumbling, and the lack of proper facilities is hindering our daily lives. We demand that the government allocate sufficient budget to rebuild and maintain our roads, bridges, and public transport systems. It's unacceptable that in 2025, we still face power outages and water shortages due to neglected infrastructure. private investment alone isn't enough. The government must step up and take responsibility. Our education system is failing our children. Teachers are underqualified and underpaid, leading to poor educational outcomes. We call on the government to invest in comprehensive teacher training programs and offer competitive salaries to attract and retain quality educators. Without immediate action, our future generations will continue to suffer from inadequate education. The excuse of lacking budget is no longer valid. To generate more revenue, we must boost domestic production. The government should provide incentives for local industries, reduce bureaucratic red tape, and create a conducive environment for businesses to thrive. By doing so, we can create jobs, stimulate the economy, and reduce our reliance on imports. Our youth are the backbone of this nation, yet they face staggering unemployment rates. We urge the government to implement effective programs that harness the potential of our young workforce. This includes vocational training, apprenticeships, and partnerships with private sectors to create job opportunities. Ignoring this issue is a ticking time bomb that will have dire consequences for our society. In conclusion, the government must take immediate and concrete actions to address these pressing issues. The time for empty promises is over. We, the people of South Africa, demand accountability and tangible results. Our patience has worn thin, and we will not stand idly by as our nation deteriorates due to negligence and inaction.